Anyone think it's about to start the
Live streaming is on.
Oh, yeah. I did not.
Wait, with what?
Huh? I said I'll just send out the email regardless.
Oh, okay. Yeah, y'all are good whenever. I just wanted that to happen before you started speaking.
Ava, can you send your email in the chat? Sorry.
Oh, sure.
Okay, thanks.
We're still waiting on Eli, right? Or is he?
Yeah.
Let me call him.
I sent the app, by the way, in case anyone is wondering.
He's on his way.
Hello, sorry, Eastern Central mix-up. I'm here. I have the email. I'm good.
All right, Jackson, Ava, Truman.
Give me 1 second. I haven't even opened the doc.
Oh, okay. Yeah, no worries.
I'm good whenever.
I'm also good.
Okay. Plan: the United States also implemented a single-payer universal healthcare system with regulation for inoperable health information technology ecosystem-based and evidence-based services. Cyber tech and healthcare are rapidly escalating, pushing the entire sector. Risk 92 health systems and hospitals are under unprecedented stress. Departments battle unrealistic cyber tech breaches and all the time 2021 the number tripled in just 3 years. Whether attacks massive work crossing hard the industries and prime sector attackers from mountain heads PHI and Solomon and dark web hacking IT incidents continue to be the cause of breaches. The departments continue to be strengthened with related security measures failing, but the waste and breaches going undetected and efforts of LA security measures falling short. The risk is high in healthcare. Russian cyber tech, cyber retaliation, all out cyber war standings switch to the common list for reflect this. A lesson of the brinkmanship who's unwilling to dissuade the West for an involvement in the war. He become the ultimate gambler in the global peace that we could on the cusp of closer cyber war. The United States might be primarily putting results to restrict many run an embedded version of Windows XP, exposing pages of political risk. The risk likelihood is therefore high. HDL2 devices demand special security considerations. There are many legacy insurance HIT systems to be taken out by ransomware, cyber attacks, and how to security leaves the industry wide open to attack. Even if Putin holds back the GHU, the criminal gangs are inflicting massive damage. Causes nuclear war and breaks into deterrence element 18. In addition to hiding uses the risk of mail hacker, unauthorized launch of cyber threats, undermine the very foundation of nuclear deterrence, strategic stability, uncertainty, can jeopardize credibility of deterrent and waste nuclear conventional weapons to not cyber attacks to prevent the flow of info guidance decisions, including responding of warnings, disable ability to transmit quarters and cut off de-escalation, lead to misinterpretation. Nuclear weapons are dependent on systems with digital competence, connected civilian systems. Extinction line is 22. nuclear conflict suit, blocking radiation, dropping the temperature than any perturbation for 1,000 years. Precipitation declines results from widely used models who collapse. Will less than 1% of the are still severe damage to the ozone ag and ecosystem, including UV, which trigger global nuclear famine. The population will long be dead. And will kill billions of models. Early specific reduction of food. 99.7%. Everyone survived with subsequently starved. Single pair cells builds and regulations that create data resilience and correct errors from outside breaches. Elliot 15 anthem announced data breach much of exposed millions costs announced 11 million people may be affected. The number affected grew 22%. Breaches happen in healthcare than any other sector. There is no such response to health data or system for resolving disputes and meet difficult patients and racist false info. Experts support single pair for the public models has great equity and the motivation to share credentials that doesn't exist. They're an open bank fault for global terror and organized crime. The for-profit model uniquely hamstrings counter-terror efforts in healthcare chains. 16 Adam said we've seen numerous honestly cases of foreign studies. Foreign nations, organized groups, and bad actors using weaknesses of our healthcare system to seal billion America's advocacies about an open bank while no one is guarding haven't seen IT systems. It's remarkable how integrated they are. These dollars are the U.S. economy. Yet they're funny. Criminal and terrorist activities. You don't need the right or left solution. The right solution or left solution. We need an American solution. Organized crime causes global warming, climate destruction. Luna 21 illicit economies have tremendous security consequences. Illicit economies come with vulnerabilities. Corruption, terrorist financing, instability, enabling comes to present terrorist groups. Illicit economies that threat multiplies the world has borders and imperial supply chain security, economy, and competitiveness from Southeast Asia to the Caucasus. Corrupt leaders are undermining global security. The illicit economies form market instability, pollution, our natural world, and help endanger sustainable development. Single pair cells, bills, and regulations that create data resilience and correct errors from outside breaches. Alien 15 anthem announced the breach may expose millions of clusters, millions. Google counts announced that 1 million people have been affected. Number affected grew 22%. More breaches happen in healthcare than any other sector. There's no central repository to health care system resolving these things difficult for patients to raise false info. Experts propose that single pair of the public model has great equity. The motivation to share protections doesn't exist because everyone has access to medical theft is in countries that provide insurance. Data breach has collapsed consumer confidence in AIG. BFR to 18. The U.S. consumers believe that organizations that fail to protect data should face immediate penalties from regulators. The majority have a punitive mindset and prepared to take decisive action. They stop using a brand. U.S. consumers are distinctly more concerned with how companies use the data. U.S. businesses are more comfortable with risk. Most worrying is the lack of awareness. Prices such as climate and how scientists are improving health, and we're going to transition to clean energy. Consumers feel uninformed to have privacy first. I prepare to withdraw data consent. The data revolution amounts to nothing without trust and support. Is vital. The public feels knowledgeability, support innovation that prevents broad adoption. Trust in public by anarchy. Polonsky 18. Some people embrace efforts that others suspicious, refusing to partake. The place of large people at disadvantage contribute to a deeply divided society between those who believe in and benefit from and those who reject it. Differences in trust could lead to differences in socioeconomic status, resulting in clashes to become heedless regulation that stifles innovation. If AI is to live up to its full potential, we have to get people to trust it. Inequitable AI diffusion causes extreme, but equitable AI terminally solves every impact. Newton 17. The biggest issue is Sky War 1. Small elite group has control. Super intelligence can be pre-programmed with prejudices and error in programming can result in unforeseen consequences. And ethical framework has to be programmed. It's the only tech capable of wiping out with a lot of other risks. Hard to get to. Extinction AI could also rid of many current problems. Could aid space travel, eliminate aging disease, calculate the best possible solution to issues and environmental destruction, unnecessarily save someone that irrelevant AI is the only solution to super intelligence, fundamentally and irreversibly imbued with respect. Only the plan solves, otherwise multi-player system will collapse in operability, explodes costs, and destroy the market. Game in 16. ERHRs would adopt improve efficiency, reduce errors, improve care, and save money. One for physician, our telemonitoring agent, have largely replaced paper data entries, time consuming. They've also become valuable to gaming because they predict cost system. My doctrine single care based on evidence-based services, medical and billing records managed by many other countries with universal access based on a service ethic, interoperability, ensures state evidence-oriented cyber infrastructure that solves the best parts of a decentralized system. Tier 16, the inoperable ecosystem will enable the rapid dissemination of a new knowledge system with the best evidence, lower costs, improve health, drive innovation. The standards rely on encryption. We need better security. Centralized systems offer advantage, and the loss of data leads to the adoption of networks with distributed authority. There must be an automation of data processing. The rapid coverage and response to the best defense of pandemics and bioterrorism. Con 17 is uninsured people delay care with this becomes a danger when the problem is deadly disease. Future attack involves small cost uninsured victims will decide to delay care. Waiting would certainly expose others to pandemic countries. Has universal coverage are much better to prepare. The only way to prepare for pandemics or bioterrorist attack with a single person that covers everyone. The U.S. government requires a universal healthcare system. By pandemics and bioterror, each cause extinction, maintaining system resilience is key. Mill 17 diseases responsible for the greatest death. The flu was 15 million. Skeptics would have many reasons. Diseases would need to spread worldwide, overcome resistance to detection, cures, and countermeasures. Even evolution did not rule the possibility out. Implications of worrying. This is especially true given a safe run by what research for which great cards could also increase the pressure to use weapons. Framing. The standard is maximizing expected weighing. Justify use will prefer one is consequential. Some only explains degrees of wrong. So break a promise to go to lunch. So that is not as bad as breaking a promise to take a giant piece of the hospital. Only the concepts of breaking the promise explain about the second one is so much worse than the first. Intuitions outweigh the foundational basis of any argument. And theories that contradict our intuitions are mostly false, and we can't decisively determine why second is phenomenal. Introduction to the most epistemically reliable historical moral disagreement over internal conceptions of morality, so questions of race, gender, class, religion, etc. Prove the fallibility of non-observational based ethics. I guess I will read one more card. Cybercrime is a tapeworm, collapses global growth and destroys business confidence. Shown 16 for actually no, I'm not gonna read that card. I guess extinction outweighs under any framework, even under moral uncertainty, infinite future generations. Number 15, reducing as the risk is the most important. There were trillions upon trillions of future people, even the well-being of only even 0.001% weight non-consequential, so that the latter does minimally plausible versus DNA the ratio sometimes be considered to imply very strong reason to reduce existential risk. Mark the credit risk. And I did not read a new card, just to clarify. You're muted.
Okay, cool.
Oh, yeah.
Oh, I forgot I wasn't muted. All right, give it across.
Can I have like a second to drink water?
Oh yeah, of course.
I'm good.
Okay, great. The cyber attacks and healthcare evidence, Landy 22 talks about the types of breaches hitting an all-time high in 2021. 4.5 million people's data has been compromised. What's different about coming cyber attacks?
So I missed the last part. It's different about what cyber attacks?
What's different about coming cyber attacks as opposed to the mass amounts of cyber attacks, like the Anthem-based cyber attack, the Tenet-based cyber attack? 4.5 million people's data has been breached. What's different about coming cyber
All like a
attacks?
sliding scale. Obviously, the cyber attacks that happen over time like sort of accumulate and cause more data breaches. It only takes one to
Wait, I'm confused. It only takes one data breach, but
not like only take one data
scale
breach.
where the more is worse.
No, it only takes one like sort of accidental like disruption to cause extinction.
Oh, it only takes one accidental disruption to cause extinction. So why haven't all the accidental disruptions that we've already had caused extinction? Like,
Well,
what is
we haven't
different about these future cyber attacks?
Okay, first of all, our evidence is in the context of like previous past attacks. We are lucky those didn't cause extinction. Our evidence indicates that they would. The standings card.
Wait,
like,
so your evidence is like these attacks are going to cause extinction. They didn't cause extinction, so you're saying, oh, they'll cause extinction. Like, what is different about these new cyber attacks, or is it just more of the same? Like, oh, all the like literally hundreds of cyber attacks that should have caused extinction haven't, but the chance of one in the future is enough for the advantage. I just want to be very clear. That's your internal link.
You can say that about any sort of advantage of an app. Like obviously the scenario
sounds great. The equitable AI diffusion, the Newton 17 evidence is talking about a small elite group having control over AI. The Polanski 18 evidence is talking about how there might be consumer bias and like a bunch of like middle class people might not want to buy in. How do you control who controls AI and how it's developed?
I don't say like we control AI in the sense, but we allow.
How does the plan affect who is controlling AI and how it's developed?
Because it produces a more equitable form of AI.
That's not answering my question. This talks about how some people might not want to participate in AI, but might not want to like participate in AI. It's like some people who like don't trust the AI. How do you control trust AI? The Newton 17 evidence talks about one where a small elite group has control. How do you determine who's developing and controlling these super intelligence?
It gives the example of like Skynet, but obviously the sort of like scenario is that if a small elite group has like sort of control over AI, that is worse than if like it's spread and diffuse throughout like everyone.
It's diffuse. Okay, how does the plan allow like the global south to get access to artificial intelligence?
The global, I mean, I guess like interoperability.
Like I'm confused. How many people need to have control over AI in order for it to be equitably diffused enough to be?
It's not a question of how many people have control over AI. It's a question of whether or not like the AI is centralized or if it's decentralized.
Whether AI is centralized or decentralized. Okay, so how many like groups are developing AI right now? How many like more groups? How is it decentralized? Like people are just able to like buy a bunch of like super intelligence off the streets post plan?
The Polanski evidence gives examples of groups that are currently developing AI and sort of trust and public buy-in that exists in the SaaS code.
That's fine.
Taking prep or no?
No, thank you though. The 1NC should be, where is it? Okay, there we go. All right, 1NC is sent.
Order?
Yeah, order is gonna be 1, 2, 3 off, then case. Case is top down.
Okay. Give me 1 second.
I'm good whenever.
Okay, wonderful.
I need 1 second. My word is just taking forever.
Okay, I'm good.
Yeah.
I'm also good.
Great. Everybody's good? Wonderful. First off is T single payer. Interpretation: single payer solely refers to the financing mechanism for paying for healthcare. NHCHA's no date. Single payers and legal life financing mechanism when and administer the healthcare funding and payment. Second violation: the AFIAT's regulation over healthcare information technology ecosystem that touch beyond the financing mechanism of health insurance, which makes the app extra T. Third standard is 8-point limits. Allowing the app to be on any part of healthcare means apps like the National Health Service app that socializes every aspect of healthcare. Apps that talk about broad regulations on hospitals or care providers regarding what type of care they need to provide, put emissions caps, environmental regulations becomes topical since extra T apps are T as long as they slap on single payer. Them adversaries at predictable status points, so they shift the debate from financing. B-point background, allowing them to impose extra topical regulations means they can arbitrarily fiat out of disaster. For example, fiating out of the big data to decide how single payer hurts data standards, or fiating higher reimbursement rates to get out of hospital doctor shortages. They make all the background concession because they have to read links to the extra topical parts of the app, not single payer itself. For TVA, read the data standards and internal link to the app solves a topic. And obviously, we have debates about big data. Buck is a background on whether or not single payer is good for them, which generates robust class-heavy debates. 5 paradigm issues. 8-point topicality drop the debate, fundamental baseline for debatability. B-point using the interpretations. 1-point topicality is a yes or no question. You can't be reasonably topical. And 2-point reasonably advice, arbitrary judgment, intervention, and race to the bottom of question argumentation. C, no RVIs. At 1.4 says they wanted to go on all in theory skills up to education. Second, encourage a thing because the one is you'll purposely be abusive. And third, logical issue if we're not being abusive. Next up is a PHR counterplan. Counterplan tax unitization to implement a personal health record sharing system as a mirror at all 10. Platform offers online PHR system, letting Google Health and Microsoft Health File. The platform takes on responsibility of developing enable automatic transfer provides HR system to service platform uploading patient records to mix an account and gain access to PHR account reaches cost platform requirement. Each participant provider means to get available to a third party limits ability to unilaterally rate switching cost supporting an equilibrium platform resolve incentive issues. We already had some of these facilitate participation by selectively subsidizing providers and solves HR usage as a mirror at all 10. Vertical integration by PHR platform can take advantage of cloud computing, provide HR services, private software as a service model, provide advantages of scale utilized by online platforms to offer providers that HR system lower cost benefit considered due adoption of HR systems and resolves financial incentives, insurance, and interoperability as a mirror at all 10. Competing prices will not have this incentive and plan HR because due to committed customers PHR entities ability to observe cost to transform non-interoperable HR system and systems that talk to each other as cost-based software design collectively compensate provided to induce them to join the platform reports about an agreement to electronically share their records to the underlying interoperable framework field to increase sharing of medical record facility adoption and use, and that's key to controlling cost of medical research. Solves public trust as a mirror all 10. Provides that evidence to develop recognition have to be enforced by TikTok. Additional regulation by the business causes due to healthcare records that's been at $75 to $100 billion with goes on going experience in the UK over budget of hindsight with a single provider system. Loop entry with PHR platform enabling proxy national exchange providing a additional accepting against the shared HR benefit medical research one increase loyalty of customers. Next up is the stocks system. Market strong now, but not involved. World War 12. Stock market on track. Nasdaq conviction in a bull market. CPI flat. Consumer price and go up. PPI stocks project class. Nasdaq up over 20%. Consumer spending better than projected. S&P 500 companies reported earnings 70% have met profit targets. Investors feeling optimism following a predictable start. Fed has a couple more rate hike plan. Inflation no rate to target. The more work to be done by encouraging the market shipping weight robots and single payer makes private health insurance worthless overnight crash. The stock market carried 17. Insurance company after have assets with health insurance companies that were put out of business would be sold to general so the investments have the loss of capital. The government could wipe out entire energy, hospital, drug companies, medical supply, and medical equipment sector would be affected because the stock market crash losses could be in trillions. And fear of healthcare reform triggered stocks sell off one internal efficiency and on 16. Stocks and business that came to a halt marks severe new pricing policy with pressure on stock prices bar from the debate concerning Manaker. Manaker candidates argue for government control second accounted for wise debating publicly understanding new policy because it's a new development to the government involvement as a result stocks have been out of favor and stochastic market bubbles and trade massive position. Yeah, at all 12. Following US stock prices collapse, credit card rights, social investment never such a fall of market and unemployment are high. Predicting recession stock price fell and unemployment rose and it's optimistic about market PR more using in a Colorado lenders lend more the firm and finance more investment is higher from value justifies optimistically stochastic bubble. There's a small probability the bubble measure cannot be emerged by rational expectations after first economy enters a recession, high unemployment, chronic constraints, high firms reduce investment and hiring model explain the Great Recession, and U.S. is key to the global economy recovery is driving global gains. 121. With 35 with US economies guiding to those gains will not say at home demand for goods each year as expected this bill will be under subordinate US large single contributing global growth and US and China's reign of the principle and empowering the global economy and decline cascades nuclear war by 21. Second impression of the application rules and coupling the both and enable the one air just about a full crisis that was making farmer health and retail are intertwined economic senses and geopolitical realignment to US and China ripples will be something with later workforce and including chemical plants with a surge in accident that causes behind World War II depression history repeats itself balloon effects include around war US China confrontation or Taiwan and CS Korea prolific India Pakistan nuclear war nuclear competition NATO and Russia case. The cyber attacks advantage. Cyber attacks. One, the vast majority of the evidence talks about hackers who scam individual people or her personal information for nuts and not attacks from other states or terrorist groups that could escalate. Second, single payer can't solve outdated Windows systems or software vulnerability. If you grant them solvency, it takes too long for every single hospital to upgrade. Third, since they're correct that Russian terrorists want our healthcare data, single payer is worse because it puts data in one centralized system for hackers to target. Four, no catastrophic cyber attack. 25 years of empirics with a low level non-escalatory. Lewis 20. Catastrophic cyber attack means imaginary catastrophe must produce mass casualties. Cyber catastrophe requires technical skills. Actors do not possess uncertainty among potential attack about U.S. ability to attribute that they're willing to retaliate emphasis espionage and coercion produce catastrophic create out of an escalation has never occurred scenarios is counter-robust to modern day given attention to cybersecurity and people quickly rebuild the organized crime evidence. One, single payer lacks effective oversight that opens the gates of fraud and abuse. CBRH P21. Fraud abuse of $28.91 billion in improper payments and FFS target due to lack of prior authorization, utilization, or even starting to health insurance carriers use a limit of avoidable terms. A single payer model limited by the fraud and abuse and $2.2 billion allocated to fraud and abuse control program and no crime impact in the co-operations high real low 21. She has a law enforcement by the worldwide by U.S. collude against crime. The massive takedown using tech and international cooperation is a great achievement to combat organized organized crime in Latin American countries to help with legal framework terms of transnational organization through treaties and sharing until they've been able to collaborate with the U.S. and massive ops and no climate evidence, no warming impact. Or 20, effective climate, no climate decision complex sensitive to reduction in time by less than 9 cases of self food, most of our land over areas of cases of the tropics, lovers, passes of rapid warning, just loss of biodiversity with 20 degrees Celsius. There would be coastal and elevator beats, no days about the habitat natural. There would be many large which civilization could continue, and they don't solve for things. They don't solve for things like governmental incentives, massive corporations, which are the root cause of tech, root cause of climate change, the AI. So they don't solve inequitable AI. Inputs that Polonsky's talking about government regulations and public trust. We don't have mechanisms to have Uber and Silicon Valley tycoons controlling AI. The Crossix was embarrassing about the AI decentralization. Viewpoint consumer confidence AI doesn't lead to equitable diffusion. If anything, corporations take the increased amount of money used to develop AI more quickly and better able to skirt regulations. C-point no healthcare key hacks on any sector of the economy, if destroy public trust, like ransomware attacks on pipelines, etc. There, Crossix proves that the hundreds and literally hundreds of cyber attacks in the healthcare system should have triggered it. There, triggered them. You see, the probability is much greater. The probability is that it doesn't cause an impact is much greater. Deep no interlink. There's a massive disconnect between more businesses use AI-related tools and we create perfect AI that solves climate change and world hunger. E-points that artificial is safe and never existential. Pick your 18. Robopocalypse if our goals are actually alternative things. Not seems like wanting something to law comments and stuff that it just turn into the country's like all with movement women and independent brain and bad scenarios are suffering independent parts of the humans are gifted. They can not independent AI so more they would be able to give control the universe without testing into they would be so big like where are business women's like with a having an elementary blood is misunderstanding the game and the bioterror of diseases into colonization brought 17. Something causing to 338 until 4% where ascribed infection species not where globally dispersed another faction to be species to globally dispersed keep up rational response high level pathogen could kill us before the psycho path and jobs lethal and bioweapons attacks are too complex even large scale funding access information genetic tool terrorists will choose not to pursue or will likely fail or bill 17 terrorists will not put level pathogen weapons tend to be vernacular rather than sophisticated mass casual attacks because they're likely to kill factor virus aerosols weapons are clearly vulnerable to environmental factors that they prove significant the risk of pregnancy sharing ratio failed in the human terms with age is probably predictable to have to deal with social factors the counter is isolated reports that days recruit fighters with degrees and is not for more scientific information is all the all required for CBW and train people require guidance on identifying so the areas of genetic structure swear would only go up and show father kill string scale up and well position or crime considerable and disciplinary generated through large interdisciplinary error teams and the only multiplayer keyboard they have is the game and evidence is not reliant they sell billing services for extra services offer things like plastic surgery they'll offer post plan but not through single payer. Ready for cost.
Okay. 2 minutes. Status of counterplan.
Oh no.
All right. The I guess like the counterplan, like the EHR stuff, I guess a personal health record sharing system, like what would that look like in the sense that like how much access, like who would have access to like personal health?
Okay, yeah. So the way the counterplan works, that it established what's called a personal health record sharing system, which is modeled off of things like Google Health or Microsoft's Health Vault. So a third-party software giant creates a centralized system that allows providers and consumers to upload their health records. It subsidizes providers, which means that it solves the type of strategic incentives that the 1AC evidence isolates and internal links about why providers don't want to share health records because it means that people are. Okay.
Another question, sorry. I guess the like Ozemdeer evidence, like the public trust stuff, I guess like what's the implication of this?
Solve the 1AC warrant about public trust.
Like for the AI scenario?
Yeah, it talks about why it would build consumer confidence.
Okay.
Increases customer loyalty.
Topicality, I guess like why is this I guess like why is the app specing a mechanism like I guess a violation of extra topicality? Like what if we added on to the plan as like a link that is uniquely
absolutely. So the problem is not specifying a mechanism. You are free to specify things like financing, things like bundled methods, capitation payments, fee for service, like how it's paid, like are you using taxes, are you using deficit spending? All of that is fair game because it's intrinsic to the mechanism of single payer. But the 1AC plan text adds with regulations for an interoperable health information technology ecosystem based on evidence-based services, which is very clearly you grafting on this other system for unifying medical health records into single payer.
Like, okay, I guess like what does that entail?
What
kind of apps are allowed under your interpretation that can have a mechanism?
No, I listed a ton of different mechanisms that you can specify, right? Like if you do any modicum of research on the single payer topic, all of the literature is about financing because single payer as a term of art refers to how we pay for healthcare, which means that you are free to specify, you're free to specify how you finance it. I listed a bunch of examples. You're also free to specify things are covered if you have prescription drugs, like the Canadian model.
I guess like what, yeah, again, why are these things distinct from the app? Like if a single payer specifically refers to a financing mechanism, I guess
because this is not a financing mechanism. There's a difference between a financing mechanism or a debate over coverage, which models the literature, versus you saying, here's this cool thing that some countries with single payer have, unified medical records. So we will fiat in unified medical records. That's not part of the plan. Like that is something extra that you're adding on to the plan.
I guess the like inequitable or the disad, I guess like the link argument seems to just be about like how single payer like crashes the stock market overnight. I guess like if the app sort of adopts like a broad public system, why is that an immediate crash? Like none of your evidence is in the context of single payer. So I guess like,
well, is your plan single payer? Because if it is, then it links. There are two separate links, which are firstly about the perception of the stock market, and secondly about how it burst the bubble around investor confidence.
5 minutes starting out. Oh, I was muted. Sorry. 51 seconds left. Order is case case T counterplan disad, and I'm sending the doc. Just let me know when everyone has gotten it. Is anyone not ready?
I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah, I haven't gotten the doc.
Oh, okay. I can also put in file share, but maybe just like wait like 30 more seconds. I guess.
Can you try just resending your file sharing yet? Because I got your other one really quickly.
Yeah. It's in file share now as well.
Just came through as well.
Oh. Okay.
Just go.
I'm good whenever.
Elijah, and Jackson. I didn't get a response from Eli, so okay. Going for the disease scenario, the after says active recovery to response assault by terrorism and disease as a condom evidence of an answer. The liability to the barrier evidence of disease don't cause extinction assumes that there is a disease that cannot be transmissible. That obviously doesn't take into account COVID was written in 2017, does not take into account sort of recent trends of how a disease has been escalating, how COVID-19 has caused sort of mass disruption to the sort of global environment, etc. Their argument sort of assumes that diseases cannot be globally dispersed and cannot affect other factors, which obviously does not assume a sort of largely transmissible disease. The rebuttal evidence assumes that terrorists do not have the capability to sort of acquire weapons. That obviously is incorrect. Or one of the evidence specifically, or one of the millet evidence specifically in the context for how, and it's a direct indicator that indicates that skeptics have good reasons to think this disease is unlikely and needs to spread worldwide, etc. But things like countermeasures, cures, resistances, etc. can also be overcome, and terrorists do have acquisition and ability in order to sort of make like diseases like COVID-19 and stuff like that in the sense which their evidence does not assume. It just is in the context of sort of CBWs in the past, not sort of working, and sort of examples of people like Shrinko, but doesn't assume sort of future threats, which means that arguments are relevant. We made the plan implements the universal single payer just specifies part of the implementation. None of the plan takes actually every single player system's implementation data. What happens with medical data just specifying the plan implementation includes the process of making single payer active reflecting mirror and website no date implementation and incidental implementing the process of making something active or effective implementation of a new policy there. And HCHC evidence doesn't exclude the app, just indicate that everything about the app did was wrong, just that single payer itself doesn't implicate it, which isn't an argument. It's not precise or based on the words of the resolution preferred. One is ground line specification, better, less than negative, right? Specific distance or place out of single payer. The content is inevitable. Their interval means that nothing is put in the plan which exclusively works from the neg. And every generic bot single pair length second is over limiting any interval that excludes this plan makes them one topic of the affirmative, which makes being neg too easy. The topic builds an incredibly strong generic from neg adding selects when implementing heated details about how different single pairs are implemented, which quarter the topic precision independently outweigh even if their version of the topic is marginally more pragmatic one to arbitrarily justify jettisoning versions of the resolution of the room, which is predictability resolution wording is the best predictable states for predetermined which outweighs their offenses determines what kind of debates we can have. TBA does not solve precision over limiting our offenses. It doesn't exclude our interpretation, and are asked specifically about grants and how they can sort of pick out of the affirmative if we don't specify mechanism, and the sort of financial mechanisms that they do sort of propose are basically the same as the affirmative. So I don't understand what sort of negative ground they lose. They can just read the same dissets, the same sort of dissent arguments apply. You just don't read the understand because it's just not true on this topic. Just find better sort of arguments. The limits arguments obviously ridiculous. Affirmative can sort of specify anything regardless. They are over. The limits are inevitable in the sense that affirmatives can still specify anything regardless because they said that financial mechanisms are still able. They need specific reasons why financial mechanisms, how their interpretation of allowing financial mechanisms also does not explode the topic to make it infinite either. The counterplan. Permutation resolves any sort of internal benefit. It clearly does not solve the disease scenario. None of the 1C evidence in
the context of our disease access scenario. The EHR has nothing to do with diseases, neither does the medical research system prevent biotech or the EHR scenario is supposed to solve the sort of AI hacking stuff and how people can have sort of equitable access, but obviously has nothing to do with sort of disease scenario and how sort of terrorists can acquire weapons. Medical access neither independently solves that. The one entity did not substantiate this in the one entity, which means that the two in our sort of explanation, this would be entirely new, which means you should reject on face. Conditionality is an issue when it's class, it destroys engagement system, neck ingestion, the argument least undercover, which means when response to second is just the soft can be prolonged sufficient neck class while preserving strategic decision. Just had no link. The care seems a total wiping out an industry, which is like you have to prove that there's a direct trade-off with the app, not just posturing, and it sort of happens over a long time. No impact. COVID proves economic recessions can happen without extinction. Non-unique sort of scenario. We post-state U.S. stocks now. Laundry list of recent new U.S. stocks are low now. Laundry list of recent can be something that happened this Tuesday. Moreau 9/13. The Feds may take the U.S. economy down. Consumer price rose 8.3%. Core prices from 0.6% from July to August. Doubles what economists said. Surpassing of the CPI record undercut. Investors' confidence in markets humbly. The Dow fell by more than 1,020 to 100%. The S&P, the 500, and Nasdaq plummeted 4.3 and 5% as Wall Street's worst day since 2020. The Tuesday's report all but guaranteed the plans will make, but announce another interest rate hike. Single payer boost the economy. 6 more HP 22. The compensation would change health savings to employees, increasing taxable wages premium would be eliminated, and out-of-pocket healthcare would decline. Administrative expenses would decline, including research says increasing economic productivity. The reduced payments increase productivity and efficiency. Labor productivity increases health improvement. Non-health consumption risen by 11.5%. Independently, their link card, their sort of interpretation card on NHCCH sort of proves our argument, because if there's a financing mechanism that proves that we're sort of able to revitalize the economy as well. Economic downturn doesn't cause conflict. 15 to economic downturn guarantee conflict. Economic justice associated with conciliatory policy, drawing on data from 109 distinct died and takes to terminate this. Questions existing theories claiming downturns are associated with diversion war. Mark the war.
Okay, cool. I took 5 minutes. Only reasons to reject the team was condo, right?
Yeah.
Wonderful. Okay, cool. There's a few cards which are emailed. Order's going to be counterplan this that case.
Okay. Counterplan this that case.
Wait, what'd you say?
Yeah, I got it. Yeah, I'm good.
Okay, wonderful. All right.
Sorry, give me a second.
Yeah, no, take your time. Okay, no, I can see.
Okay, yeah, I'm good whenever.
Okay, wonderful. On the counter plan, we'll concede the permutation rule will be some cross application to solve this deficit, but we're kicking the counter plan now. The condo, top level on 1AR theory, it's skewed towards the front of the A point, the 2R must cover something overcover theory because they get the collapse and persist has been invented 3 minute 2R B point. Their response to the counter interpretation will be new, which means 1AR theory necessitates intervention, which means that you should A point drop the argument to minimize the chance of round inside and unfairly B point use reasonability of the bar of defense to the app always wins because the 2R can line behind the whole 2R without winning real abuse. Now interpret independently condo is good. We get what we did. 1 point neglects and always reactor to 1A gets a 1AR and 2AR and has infinite practice take out 1AR strategy. Condo shows competitive equity. Second negation has related to prove the app condo to this effect negation by testing multiple angles interpretation based classified instead of the case of contradiction. 3 point critical to K4 is a smart 1AR choice adaptation and logic that offers 1AR process clarification big plans and impact towards app choice. 4 logic allows judge and knows the best policy moving the counter plan is bad to prove the plan ends goods. 5 ideological factors of risk reverse condo enables argumentative diversity and innovation maximize the portable benefits. 6 usability add-ons promotes returning that benefit. 1AR choice like they need to prove interaction damages up to conduct always going for one of the 2 and 2 they can see contradictions. Solve 7 disabilities and solve if teams will just add planks of force perms and eliminates the ability for 2 and strategic choice. The disad. Well, from the disad here, markets are strong now and reaching new heights fueled by overcoming inflation was a strong earnings of plan messes that up rendering private insurance worthless forces massive asset sales causing economic collapse outweighs 1 point magnitude economic factors that stress as a result in domestic global instability research shortages and trade collapse and motivates irrational issues across the board economic pressure is perceptive meaning that's not constrained by geographic proximity or resource limitations the highest to escalate every other scenario. Mailboxes that economic influences could cause estimate to US China Iran NATO Russia and India Pakistan second is time frame the rehauling the entire broader tech ecosystem which is the 1 and C war requires significant amounts of time to update it but the effects on stocks are immediate because it's perception based and reception based and the government immediately break down so the disad happens infinitely faster than they can solve their cyber impacts. Time controls the question of whether the disad turns case or case turns to disad, which means that means that we'll just win that case turns to disad. Now independently economic collapse turns disease, each percentage increase in national income sees tens of thousands of lives annually. Prediction 73. What's the nature of healthcare in November 10, 11, 52 percent of the given facts on income health and health sensitive causal structure and income are 1% higher for 3,000 if it were 50,000 child so we averted annually the carried evidence and annually the carried evidence assumes the whole life of the industry. The meow 12 evidence and perception arguments are really great at explaining why it flows over the investors' fear of the government coming in and just destroying the health industry through these types of massive reforms. Exactly what creates uncertainty in terms of regulatory environment that collapses the bubble surrounding healthcare and makes investors less likely to invest in stocks as a whole, which then ripples across the economy. Even if you think that the healthcare is not sufficient, it means that investors are less likely to invest as a whole. And the stock market is likely to crash because people are afraid of the government intervention. The no impact argument, the COVID thumbs argument was not responsive to the Malbec evidence. Malbec evidence explains why things like that, why this time is different. It ripples out. Why this time is different. It ripples out across the U.S. means that we're at a uniquely precarious time. Things like conflicts over SCS or Russia or Ukraine means that leaders are more likely to be irrational, are facing populist pressure for diversity and war. Things like the recent elections in Finland of an alt-right populist party mean that politicians are afraid politicians are afraid of our politicians are afraid that you need the stocks argument. Both of the indicates markets are strong now. Bull market predictions, Federal Reserve checks on inflation declines, and PPI have fueled rising index across the board. Companies establish solid footing post-COVID and bar uniqueness evidence. You should prefer bar, but if you read tomorrow's 913 evidence, it's citing evidence from August, which is the exact same time as our uniqueness card. So there's not a distinction. It seems that even if they win, more recent evidence that markets went down post-August doesn't matter because markets are recovering from NASDAQ and it's shot up over 20%. One, it's inevitable under volatile markets today, but they're still trending upwards over the long-term. Second, that short-term downswipes now are in line with expectations on the Fed. Continues to hike rates and corporations adopt to functioning with less which is part of the recovery process. Third is that company fundamentals are still the same. 73% are meeting earnings expectations, and many outperform the boost. Econ argument is at 8 points. This is all long term. All of our stocks arguments are immediate to the implementation of the plan. But if you read every single word in the PHE and PH22, it's about these like long term savings or health as a whole. B points that the UK proves this will be more caused by the Alzheimer 10 evidence explains why things like this why scaling up EHR system takes a lot of time and ends up with a massive business team that's cost $75 to $100 billion in deficit in government spending alone to scale up these types of systems, which means that as a whole the economic impacts outweigh independently winning that the link happens faster than the link turn to be sufficient for you to negate now the clarity evidence. First of all, that was marked way before Rahul actually said so. He stopped after one sentence when the timer went off. Even independently, Claire uses data set of only dyadic rivals from 1950. Claire 15 data from 109 dice and 1950 of the markets of 2 rivals from 1994 and 9 to 10 seconds. That Claire used to only analyze the dyadic rival. It's rarely escalated because of lack of territorial diversity. Approximate disputes by more accurate conclusions. Here 10 territorial diversity rates are linked to just some hard could use like a suitable division targets or difficult to find radial diversity opportunity available to a few countries and during this could pose 5 performance of dice like space heights international coffee small fraction of all it has power to keep those not an issue because neighboring country titles have unique abilities to connect with broad swaths of population cut the current population case. The big problem was that the 1AR extended a bunch of taglines without actually entering the 1MC warrants. Will extend that disease doesn't cause extinction. 8 points that COVID is a negative example, which proves that we can have a highly transmissible disease that spreads across the entire world, and we still haven't all died out because there are intervening mechanisms like vaccines, therapies, and therapeutics, etc. that are all developed as well as lockdown strategies. B point is burnout. They did not answer the thesis claim to go back and read a 1MC evidence to explain why pathogens have an evolutionary incentive to not be highly transmissible and highly lethal because if they're highly transmissible and highly lethal, they will kill out their hosts before they're able to spread across the entire room. So that has to be either one or the other, because that fundamentally cannot solve these things. So they warrant that was in the evidence that was not answered. The 1AR means that even if they're winning something about bioterrorism, if they're winning something about disease, they cannot solve because diseases cannot solve extinction. C point that is empirically recommended. There's a historical analysis that finds that despite having things like 833% of outbreaks are just not enough. The 833 in pandemic outbreaks that they have not caused extinction means that they are heavily negative on the question of the historical record. Now, the terrorism arguments, 8 points that are all over evidence from the same years. You cannot have the same years absent them providing a reason why things are different post-COVID. That is distinction without difference. The point is that our evidence isolates multiple questions about things like expertise and environmental factors. Even well-funded terrorist groups like Omnish and Ricky were failed to use bioterrorism. Even if they had access to CRISPR, even if all these happens, they are still have things like diseases being extremely present to environmental factors. Makes it incredibly hard to deploy. Even if they are able to deploy diseases, the diseases don't kill everybody because of burnout.
Oh, 51 seconds start now. Yeah. Okay, the order is case to set. I think my computer's on something. Okay, is everyone good? All right. The problem with the negative is that they should not extend a disset that is fundamentally non-unique and assume that they can outweigh the risk of a high risk that the affirmative does solve disease because they've conceded that the affirmative does solve disease, whether or not it causes
is sort of a debate to be had, but I will win that debate. At the top, they've conceded the sort of affirmative rapid coverage response and the fact that we can at least solve some amount of pandemics, regardless of whether or not those things escalate to extinction, which still causes mass amount of violence because their own arguments in their evidence literally concede the fact that the sort of pathogens always kill their host, which would still result in mass sort of structural violence and starvation, which is infinitely bad. But I will when it causes extinction, the con evidence and the sort of and the millet evidence specifically substantiate that pandemics and bioterror cause extinction. I'm going to go for the bioterrorism scenario that definitely causes extinction. The line. There's sort of the argument that warrant the evidence gives us an example of how sort of detection, cures, countermeasures, etc., cannot rule out the possibility of terrorist groups acquiring bioweapons in the future. It doesn't have to happen immediately. If it's a speculative, it's still applied because of the fact that these people can still get access to it. And it doesn't matter whether or not historical examples prove that it lines their way or not. That is irrelevant. I'm going to answer the line-to-line arguments here at the top. The burnout argument is obviously irrelevant. It makes the sort of COVID example. I don't have to go for the COVID. The COVID stuff is not a negative example because all it just proves is that there's high transmissibility, and their own arguments that lethality is possible as well. So if lethality happened, then transmissibility is also possible. Is not a negative argument because it just proves our argument that COVID can sort of spread. Additionally, the burnout causes disease can't cause disease argument. That's obviously irrelevant if terrorists are literally the ones that are launching them and using these at people. The evidence about being from the same year and how terrorist groups can still acquire weapons is obviously irrelevant because their own argument is in the context of past terrorist groups. Our evidence is sort of speculative and talks about future terrorist groups having the ability to sort of launch bioweapons, which proves that their arguments are sort of irrelevant. The dissat. At the top, the affirmative outweighs and turns to dissat. First is the affirmative turns to dissat when disease sort of escalates, at least to other countries lashing out against each other, and then leads to other countries sort of lashing out at each other, which causes a massive amount of sort of violence, and causes sort of massive amount of violence and sort of fear, which leads to countries sort of lashing out against each other because they want to engage in war before something bad happens, before they're the ones that are wiped out, etc. They don't have any evidence substantiating that, but our specific millet evidence is in the context of how diseases could amplify the risk that weapons are used in the first place and how bioterrorism can be acquired. It doesn't matter whether or not they're winning time frame. If there's such a low risk of the dissat, which we'll get to, it's irrelevant. The affirmative also outweighs on magnitude disease if there was any sort of economic decline because our evidence is sort of assuming a future speculative sort of disease that could exist versus their econ scenario has been empirically disproven by things like COVID, past recessions, etc., which means their effects are relevant. I'm going to go for the fact that the dissat is non-unique. The Moreau evidence infinitely outweighs their argument. The market that the Barba evidence is specific. Our evidence, whether or not you think this evidence is from August or September, is sort of irrelevant. You know intuitively the stock market is definitely down right now. There's such a low risk of the dissat. Intuitively, you should just grant their dissat practically zero risk. And the Moreau evidence is not just about August. It gives examples of how how the sort of like stock market is down now, but it gives other examples of how sort of Wall Street's worst day since June 2020 has happened. And their evidence sort of indicates that there might be an upward trajectory in the future, but it doesn't assume the sort of stocks already crashing. The health turns disease, or like the health stuff is obviously relevant. That's like the card they read is about health. That obviously is not relevant to a disease scenario. The Barba evidence doesn't have any warrants that are specific to the affirmative. So the affirmative outweighs like a very marginal risk of a dissat. Good debate.
Great debate. Thank you guys so much for judging.
Hello, everyone. Really quick, just wanted to let the judges know that we have changed the setting on Tab Room that was previously hiding panel decisions from you all. So once all three of you are in, you should be able to see them and go ahead and announce the decision. And I just wanted to congratulate Rahul and Ava for making it to the finals. Thanks for being here. We're glad you chose to spend your Thursday and Friday with us. And good luck the rest of the weekend and in this debate that has occurred.
Thank you.
Rahul, are you there?
Yeah, I am.
Can you send a marked version of the 1AR?
Yes. Okay, I put it in LD files. It's just called 1AR marked. Sorry if it's like loud. I'm actually in a hotel lobby right now, so